Multiplayer games like World of Warcraft and EverQuest have had problems with gold farmers since the start. They leverage the power of playing multiple characters at once to farm currency or valuable items in-game to sell for real-life money. They often bully other players and disrupt the intended playability of areas. And these games have tried to fight these gold farmers, but it's had unintended consequences. Why do people play multiple characters, and why is there a need? You'll hear two terms thrown around a lot: boxing and botting. They're often confused, and it's really important we define them right and explain why they're done. Botting. Botting is where a software program does all the work. The software will automatically play characters for you. The key thing to remember: bots need no human input to play. Depending on the programming, the bots will play as well, if not better, than real players. Botting is mostly done to automate farming game currency to sell for real-life money. You start the software, walk away, and check on the progress later. As long as people will trade real-life money for game currency, this will not go away. These botters will find ways around whatever rules are made. And another benefit of what these people do is that the money they earn covers their subscriptions. Botters effectively play for free. In fact, they get paid to play. Some games try to stop botting by searching for blacklisted programs that are running in the background or placing internet address restrictions, IP lock. Many EverQuest progression servers use something called the TrueBox code. It limits you to play only one account for one computer based upon your IP. It's intended to make botting hard, while at the same time allowing your spouse or friend on the same Wi-Fi to boot up on a separate computer to play with you. In theory, it's nice rhetoric, but it doesn't work in practice. Many people use virtual machines to pretend it's multiple computers. They'll mask their IP address, or they'll use remote broadcast software to play their support characters on their main computer, on their main rig. There's many ways to get around these limitations. But in general, no community supports bots. No community supports automation where you can step away from the keyboard and the characters still keep going. Players see bots as disruptive to the game's economy and messes with the intended uses of certain zones. In my opinion, it's the botters who are mainly responsible for calls to completely ban playing multiple characters. But it's misunderstood. If that ban is done, it hurts many people who play multiple characters for legitimate reasons. So that's botting. What about boxing? Boxing is where a human plays multiple characters with or without software assistance. That's where it gets a little sketchy. But the key thing to remember is when someone is boxing, no character will do a single thing unless a human is at the keyboard and presses a button. The box characters generally play worse than real players because it's impossible to give all boxes full attention at the same time. You cannot macro everything, and it fails spectacularly during emergencies. Thus, boxers are much less efficient than botters. It's a slower pace of grinding and can't react fast enough for when all hell breaks loose. So why would someone pay double to 5 times the subscriptions to play worse like this? Multiple reasons, but it boils down to how older MMOs were designed. A lot of content could not be done alone. You need a group, especially in EverQuest. Everything requires help, and in WoW, dungeons require help, where a lot of the best gear is from. Now, even if you play inefficiently, you can still get more done boxing. Say you play one character to 100% of its potential and compare that to 3 characters played to 50% of their potential. Combine it up, it's 100% versus 150. Many times, that extra bit is the only reason you're able to group that day or complete a quest. A solo player would be SOL. Why do people choose to play like this when playing with others is obviously better? 3 real players is 300%, right? That's better than 150. Let's get into it. There's 4 reasons why. 1, odd play times. Say most of the server plays later in the day after work, but you can only play in the morning. Many times, boxing is the only help you can get. This is especially bad if you're an Australian or European player who's on a North American server. Everyone is asleep when you're playing. 2. Frequent interruptions. You can't pause an MMO. It's always going. You got 4 real people in a group who need you to tank the rest of the dungeon, but something happens. Say you need to change your baby's diaper, help with some chores, respond to an urgent call from work, or handle a medical emergency. We've all had it. You can't just put those 4 other people on hold to handle your urgent business. It causes problems for them. That disrupts their experience of the game. Boxing allows you to pause the game. It lets you step away from the keyboard without hurting other real people. You can still make progress in the game, albeit slower. It just helps players who are frequently interrupted by real-life responsibilities. Sometimes boxing is the only way they can play. Number 3, it helps class shortages. Who wants to play healer for their main character? Nobody. Everyone wants to play damage. Boxing lets you play the class as fun for you while having the required support classes in tow. The best combo being a tank and healer. You can easily make groups for others to join you. I like to main and raid on a support class like Bard, but they cannot solo. So I play a tank and healer combo to help my Bard make groups, level up, and do quests that he could not do alone. Now, an argument is made that boxers take away group spots from real players. It can, but there's 2 counters. Sometimes groups can't even start without a box support class, like healer, because there's no healers available. It's the box that makes the group even possible. And secondly, some boxers are never going to group with others in the first place. There was never an open group spot available. It's their money, it's their right to choose how they want to play. And the last reason, number 4, why people box. You need help, but there is none. The longer a server exists, the more population sits at level cap, and there is nobody to group with. Nobody to help you with necessary quests. The biggest reason people box is because they don't want to be reliant on other people to simply play the game they're paying for. They want to log on and make progress. Before boxing, I've had many days where I stayed logged on for hours trying to find a group but never got one. Days wasted doing this. With boxing, I never had to wait. I just played. I never had to worry about finishing a necessary quest that I couldn't get help for. But there is a gray area when it comes to boxing, something that WoW completely banned. The approved way to box, the okay way to box, is by using multiple computers or alt-tabbing between characters. You're truly playing one character at a time, but it really sucks to do. It's terribly inefficient and exhausting to juggle. I've done it for weeks, until my neck hurt really bad and I got headaches from constantly looking back and forth at different screens. It's way too much effort to be worth it, so I just gave up playing. Now, boxing gets gray when you use software assistance, key repeater programs like ISBoxer. You don't have to individually control each of your characters. You press one key and the program broadcasts it to all your characters at the same time. So say you make a macro on each character with all their damage abilities. You put it on their hotbars on slot number 7, and anytime you press 7 on your keyboard, all characters press 7 and use that damage macro at the same time. You don't have to swap screens anymore. It's much less exhausting and much more efficient coordination. Now, you can't macro everything, so it's still not as good as a real player. It won't handle emergencies well, but it'll save you the headache of having to micromanage every single character. Key broadcast programs got explicitly banned by WoW and are disavowed by EverQuest. The argument being that they facilitate botting and contribute to the gold farming racket. Yes and no. Some people do use key broadcast programs in nefarious ways that should not be allowed, but this is not botting. This software does not automatically play characters for you. No human input required. No. You have to be present at the keyboard and press buttons to make your characters do anything. All characters are still controlled by a person. This is still boxing, in my opinion, and not botting. It's a distinction that many people don't know and leads to overreactions. Gold farmers prefer to fully automate characters, then use these broadcast programs where it still requires active attention in playing. So this blanket ban against broadcast repeaters hurts the people who legitimately use these programs for the 4 reasons I gave prior. I argue there needs to be a nuanced approach to this playstyle. Blanket bans catch too many innocents in the crossfire. Now, does boxing give you an unfair advantage? Yes and no. Obviously, playing more characters is going to give you an advantage over single players, but it's fair. If you put more money and more time into exercising in the gym than someone else, you're probably going to get better results. If you purchase 3 subscriptions, you should expect to be able to do more than someone paying 1. There's an advantage, but it's fair because it costs money. It's not free. And that extra money helps pay to keep the game alive. The issue is it's misunderstood. Many people think that anytime you play multiple characters, it's always botting, it's always completely automated, when it's not. There are a few bad apples who exploit this, but many people don't. They're quiet and keep to themselves. Playing multiple characters has a bad public image that needs to change. It needs nuance. I think boxing manually or with key broadcast software should be allowed, but with restrictions. Developers should allow you to register to do it, and once registered, it's made clear that if you use this privilege to negatively affect other players or to farm money, you will be permanently banned. And the idea is those with permission acknowledge what is not allowed, what the rules are. And anyone caught playing multiple characters without being registered, like what botters would do, should be permanently banned. Botters should be banned, but boxers, no. In this system, people who box responsibly can continue to do so without fear of a rug pull, losing all the weeks to years of work they've done. Those who abuse this playstyle are stopped immediately. It's nuanced and sets clear rules. We don't have clear rules as it stands. And if you're registering for permission, you're trying to follow the rules. Give that player some slack. Personally, I was against playing multiple characters for years, and all I knew is it was terrible and shouldn't be allowed. That is, until I had to do it. I played on servers where there was no help, and the only way I could progress was with help. I was forced to box. And for weeks, I tried to do it the correct way by alt-tabbing and using multiple computers. It gave me massive headaches and neck pain. I just couldn't do it. And it also just wasted electricity. It's worse for the environment. I could only stand to play for 15 minutes a day, so I quit entirely. What was the point? I could barely make any progress, just like before I boxed. So I found out about key broadcast repeaters. It made boxing tolerable. I was finally able to make progress and not get burned out. It became the only way I could play with frequent real-life interruptions from a pregnant wife and baby. I was always able to get something done or help others in need with my limited playtime. I was always able to form a group. And then I found out what benign thing I'm doing is technically a rule violation. I could lose everything I worked years on and paid hard-earned money for. This is why I'm passionate. These are my favorite games, and if I get banned for doing this, I can't play them anymore, along with many other people. I feel like these rules need to be changed because this affects many honest people just trying to do right. It's an unpopular opinion to support playing multiple characters, but it needs to be said. There's good merits to allow it in a restricted way.